You have to think in the realm of probability here and ask yourself, what is more probable? What takes a greater amount of faith to believe? Welcome to the Ryan Holmes podcast, where our goal is to encourage Christian thinking and Christian living. This is episode 7. Now, as we get started, I wanted to actually take a moment and thank all of you who have reached out to me and given me really good feedback regarding the podcast so far. And for all of you listening, I just wanted to say thank you for really stumbling with me through this process of figuring out podcasting. It's been an exciting journey for me, and I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for showing interest in the subject matter. And I'm excited to go forward, and we're going to be bringing you a lot more content. But I just wanted to pause at this point and say thank you. And the feedback that I've received is really great. It's been encouraging, it's been challenging, and I look forward to hearing from more of you soon. So if you haven't reached out to me yet, you have a question or a thought, anything like that, you can reach out to me on social media. My Instagram is ryanholmespodcast. You can find me on Facebook and send me a request. It's just Ryan Holmes. It's my name. Or you can send me an email to ryanholmespodcast@gmail.com. I am looking to be doing a Q&A episode soon, and I'll be hopefully answering some of your questions in that episode, but that's looking forward. So if you have any questions, send them in to me, okay? I hope you enjoyed the last 2 episodes. We split up the interview with Nate Stone into 2 weeks just because we had that long of an interview, and I didn't want to keep it, or I wanted to keep it short for you. So I really enjoyed that interview with Nate Stone. I hope you did too. He's the type of person that really just makes the whole conversation enjoyable, and talking to him is will give you a great laugh. But I just wanted to bring you something fresh and new, somebody's perspective on life and faith, who really has seen a level of fame in his life, and it's been encouraging to see that level of fame hasn't pushed him away from God, and he's been able to maintain his faith. And so I hope that's encouraging to you, or I hope that was encouraging and enjoyable to you as well. So thank you for tuning in to those episodes the last couple weeks. This week we're going to get back into our regular kind of scheduled podcast episodes, and this week I'm really excited about the subject matter, and I think it's going to be helpful for you as well. 3 weeks ago, we discussed the evidence for the beginning of our universe and why I believe as Christians we can have strong confidence that the most reasonable explanation for the cause of our universe coming into existence out of nothing is God. It must have an explanation, and I believe I tried to lay out as best as I can the reasons why that we can be assured that Genesis 1:1 is true and is reinforced by the scientific data that we do have. I really hope that it was helpful for you, and I hope that this next topic will be as well. So, what is today's topic? This is kind of another building block that we are adding as we build a case for the Christian worldview. You'll notice as we start this podcast that that's kind of what I'm going to be doing is doing my best to build a case, a cumulative case for the Christian worldview. Obviously, the Christian worldview rises and falls on Jesus' resurrection, and so ultimately we could just focus on that, but I really wanted to lay a foundation for why you and I can have strong confidence in our faith and in our worldview from many different perspectives and or different angles, I should say. So we kind of started with the beginning of our universe 3 weeks ago before the interview with Nate, and so today I want to kind of add to that, and we're going to be talking about a finely tuned universe. And we'll look at what that means for you and for me. a finely tuned universe. Is our universe finely tuned? That's the question that we're going to be looking at and answering, and then kind of coming to a conclusion as to what the best cause behind the fine tuning of our universe is. Isaac Newton had this to say about the incredible state of our universe. He said this most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. Not only did our universe come into existence out of nothing, but our universe appears to have been perfectly fine-tuned to allow for life here on Earth. And Earth really does seem to have been neatly placed into this vast and otherwise hostile universe. We humans we're much like astronauts that can only survive within the confines of their spaceship. Much like a spaceship, our Earth supports life in the midst of lifeless space. We seem to fit perfectly into a minuscule pocket of space that happens to allow for all of this life we see around us. Any slight change within a myriad of factors could fatally alter the life-supporting conditions that you and I need to survive. These factors are known as anthropic constants, and they make up what's called the anthropic principle. These constants are highly precise and interdependent conditions that allow for life to exist on Earth. So today, we're going to be looking at a few of these. And again, I'm no expert on these things. This is all information that I have found that I am relaying to you. But I think it's going to paint a very good picture for us. So it's a lot of information. It may be information overload, but just kind of bear with me as we get through this. So let's take a look at some of these constants today to better illustrate this concept of fine tuning. So number 1. Oxygen comprises 21% of the Earth's atmosphere. If the oxygen level were 25%, fires would erupt spontaneously. If it were 15%, humans would suffocate. Number 2, atmospheric transparency. So if it was less transparent, then not enough solar radiation would reach the Earth's surface. If it were more transparent, then we would be bombarded by far too much solar radiation. Something further to this specific point is that the precise levels of nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and ozone that make up the atmosphere are also constants in and of themselves. Number 3, the Moon-Earth gravitational pull. If the pull were greater, tidal effects on the ocean's atmosphere and rotational period would be too severe. If the pull were less, orbital changes would cause climatic instabilities. In either situation, life on Earth would be impossible. Number 4, gravity. If the gravitational force was altered by, bear with me for a second, I gotta look closely at my notes to get this number right. Okay, so if the gravitational force was altered by 0.0000000000000000001%, that's a 1 with 37 zeros before it, our sun would not exist, and then neither would we. Please don't go back and count those zeros, because I don't know if I got 37, but they're supposed to be 37. So these are just 4 kind of major examples, main examples, but there are over 100 narrowly defined constants that make up the anthropic principle. I'm going to give you a quick list of 10 more here. I'm just going to kind of blow through them as fast as I can, but here are 10 more constants that make up this anthropic principle. So number 1, the balance of the centrifugal force of planetary movements and gravitational forces. If these two forces were not perfectly balanced, then nothing could be held in orbit around the sun. Number 2, the expansion rate of the universe. If the rate of expansion was 1 millionth slower than the actual rate Then the expansion would have stopped and the universe would have collapsed back in on itself before stars could form. If the rate was quicker than the actual expansion rate, then no galaxies would have formed. Number 3, the speed of light. Even a slight alteration might affect several other constants. Number 4, the water vapor levels in the atmosphere. If they were greater, a runaway greenhouse effect would cause temperatures to rise too high for human life. If they were less than they are now, the greenhouse effect would make the Earth too cold to support human life. Number 5, Jupiter's positioning. Its gravitational field acts as a cosmic vacuum cleaner, attracting asteroids and comets that might otherwise strike Earth. Number 5, the thickness of Earth's crust. If it were thicker, too much oxygen would be transferred to the crust to support life, but the volcanic and tectonic activity would make life impossible if the crust were thinner. Number 7, the rotational period of the Earth. If it were longer than 24 hours, temperature differences between night and day would be too great. If it were shorter, atmospheric wind velocities would be too great. Number 8, the 23-degree axis of the Earth's tilt. Surface temperatures on the Earth would be too extreme if the tilt was altered even slightly. Number 9, the atmospheric discharge or lightning rate. If the rate were greater, there would be too much fire destruction. If it were less, nitrogen fixing in the soil would be too little. Number 10, seismic activity. If there was more, then much more life would be lost. If there was less, there wouldn't be enough tectonic uplift to cycle nutrients from the ocean floors and in river runoff to the continents. So those have been just a few of over 100 constants we see in our universe. So I hope that painted a bit of a picture for you when we talk about the concept of fine tuning. Before we continue, if you are enjoying this episode and this podcast in general, would you please give it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or subscribe and follow along with whatever listening platform you are using, and that'll just help boost its reach and visibility. If you wish to financially support the podcast and the work that I'm doing, please visit ryanholmespodcast.locals.com. You can join in and subscribe for just $5 a month. You'll get early access to each episode each week, along with some other perks. If you're on YouTube, please like the video, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Thanks again, and I appreciate any and all support. So thank you. Now, let's get back to our discussion. So not only are these constants so narrowly defined, and any slight change could alter them completely and prevent life on Earth, but many of these constants are interdependent. This means that if one was slightly tweaked, then it would have a ripple effect, and many others would be altered as well. Nobel laureate Arno Penzias, who had a part in the discovery of the background radiation echo, said this: "Astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe which was created out of nothing and delicately balanced to provide exactly the conditions required to support life. In the absence of an absurdly improbable accident, the observations of modern science seem to suggest an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan." Cosmologist Ed Harrison said this: "Here is the cosmological proof of the existence of God. The design argument of Pele, updated and refurbished. The fine-tuning of the universe provides prima facie evidence of deistic design." Astronomer Fred Hoyle saw his atheistic faith shaken in part by the anthropic principle. He concluded, "A common-sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super-intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature." Physicist Paul Davies, who is himself an agnostic, had this to say: "The impression of design is overwhelming. The universe must have a purpose." Astrophysicist Hugh Ross calculated the probability that all 100 plus constants would exist for any planet in the universe by chance. His answer is shocking. I think I'm getting this figure right, so just bear with me. But I believe he said it was 1 chance in 10 to the 138th power. Either way, that's 1 chance in 1 with 138 zeros after it. So you can see it's a pretty big number. So we see virtually a 0% chance that these constants could arise by chance. William Paley is commonly known for his watchmaker argument. The analogy paints the picture of someone walking through the woods and they find a watch on the ground. The individual considers the origins of this watch and where it might have come from. Did this watch arise by chance through blind natural forces, or was this watch the product of a designer? Not only are there several complex parts, but those parts are arranged in a specific way that allow the watch to perform a particular function. Not only are there several complex parts arranged in a specific way that allow the watch to perform a particular function, but the parts are interdependent. If one part doesn't perform its function, then the rest will fail to perform their function. So, is it more likely that something like this arises out of blind natural forces, or is it more likely that there was a designer? You have to think in the realm of probability here and ask yourself, what is more probable? What takes a greater amount of faith to believe? Now, our universe is much like this watch, except on a substantially greater scale. It is an arrangement of highly complex parts, or constants, specifically tweaked to allow for life on Earth. These parts are so perfectly fine-tuned that any slight variant in one could mean the impossibility of life altogether. Again, the only difference between the watch and our universe is that our universe is much larger, if that wasn't obvious enough, and it's even more precise in its tweaking, fine-tuning, design, whatever word that you want to use. So, how do skeptics respond to this appearance of design? Richard Dawkins believes that even if we see an appearance of design within our universe, it is false to suggest that this means there is a designer. Why does he believe this? Because he says that the designer hypothesis immediately raises the larger problem of who designed the designer. Here's why he's incorrect. In order to provide the best explanation for something, we don't have to have an explanation of the explanation. I hope that makes sense. If you found an iron axe head in the woods or a watch, you would be justified in believing that these items were the product of some person or persons. You wouldn't have to have an explanation for who the person or persons were or how they came to be there. In fact, if you did always need an explanation for the explanation, then that would lead you into an infinite regress of explanations, which is absurd. Nothing then could ever be explained, and science itself would be dead. So I don't think the challenge of who designed the designer is a very, very powerful objection. We talked about the multiverse theory in a previous episode, but it still applies to today's subject matter because it's often used as an argument for how we could get a finely tuned universe such as ours without having to appeal to a designer as its cause. If there's an infinite number of universes that have every possible outcome, then there's bound to be at least one that would have the characteristics our universe has to support life. However, we discussed the reasons why this theory cannot carry any water on top of the fact that there just isn't any scientific data to back it up. We had talked about the issues that present themselves if one holds a view that there are an infinite number of universes out there. Our universe beginnings present a problem because it would be an addition to an already infinite number. Since an infinite number cannot be added to, then our universe beginning shows that there is not an infinite number of universes. I hope you're still with me. We also showed that if there isn't an infinite number of universes, but there is an incredibly large amount of universes coming into existence, then the one who holds this view would not only have to explain how our finely tuned universe came into existence, but how all the other non-finely tuned universes came into existence as well. This creates an even greater problem. You can, if you'd like, you can check out how I unpacked that in episode 4, should you wish to have a little bit more context. As we noted earlier, based on the calculations of astrophysicist Hugh Ross, there is essentially a 0% chance that all of these life-supporting conditions would be possible by pure random chance without a cause. We should also note that referencing chance as a cause is, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Some even say that it's just by chance that our universe has the life-supporting conditions that it has. But chance has no causal power. Chance is a word that we use to discuss mathematical probability, but again, it has no causal power. Some might even say that an explanation isn't needed, that the constants and quantities we see in our universe are simply a brute fact, because we wouldn't actually even be here to observe them if they weren't present in our universe, and any speculation regarding their origins is a non-scientific pursuit. This is true in some sense, because science can only tell us how our existing universe functions. It cannot tell us anything about the cause behind our universe because that's beyond its purview. But I do think that throwing up our hands and saying that these finely tuned constants or our universe beginning do not need a cause actually undermines science. Because you see, science is a search for causes. Scientists are always trying to figure out what caused what. If we are diligently searching for causes behind everything we know, why in the world would we abandon that pursuit when it comes to one of the biggest questions of life? It would benefit us to at least consider the possibilities. Because as I've said before, all positions are faith-based positions. The question is, how much faith does it take to hold the position that you have? It seems to be a huge leap in faith to believe that our universe is just the way it is and no explanation is needed. It seems to be a greater leap than believing there is a designer behind it all. Even a greater leap than believing a non-scientific theory like the multiverse or the cosmic rebound theory. It seems clear that the inference to the most reasonable explanation is that there is an intelligent designer behind all of this intricate design or fine-tuning in our universe. And I don't think I have the faith to believe that this is all purely random. What about you? Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I know that this podcast is nothing without you, the listener, so thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions for me, thoughts, comments, please send me an email to ryanholmespodcast@gmail.com, and who knows, it might end up on one of our Q&A episodes in the future. Don't forget to check out ryanholmespodcast.locals.com. I appreciate any support. And if you're on the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and ultimately, please share this podcast and let's encourage others to think about their faith and live it out. See you next week.